You probably don't believe in magic. Many people don't. Not because it disappeared, but because no one ever explained what it actually was. Just gimmicks on stage with a rabbit in a hat. When we hear the word magic, we picture fantasy, wands, spells, and impossible things. That image feels very distant from reality. But that image didn't come from direct experience. It came from distance, misunderstanding, and people trying to describe something real using the only language they had. When something is real but difficult to explain, let's be honest, we either study it or dismiss it completely. Most people chose to dismiss it, not because it wasn't real, but because it was subtle and required a large amount of patience. It didn't perform on demand. But here's the thing. You already work with magic every single day. You can feel it when someone walks into a room angry, even if they say nothing. You can feel it when someone calm sits beside you and your body relaxes. You can feel it when someone believes in you, and suddenly you believe in yourself more too. Nothing visible changed, but something real moved, energy moved, and you responded to it without thinking. This happens constantly, whether you notice it or not. That's where the misunderstanding begins. When ancient people spoke about magic, they weren't talking about fantasy. They were talking about working with forces that already exist. They gave it a fantastic name because it was rare and difficult, because not everyone was willing to develop that level of awareness. But let's be very clear, it was never fake. It was discipline, it was attention, it was self-mastery. And if you look closely, the people who seem almost magical aren't performing tricks. They're steady and calm. Their presence alone changes situations. They don't react impulsively. They choose their response. They remain centered when others become chaotic. They've learned to direct their internal state, and that changes everything, because most people live pulled by forces they don't understand. Stress pulls them, fear pulls them, doubt pulls them, self-destructive habits pull them. They move through life reacting instead of directing. But when you begin working on yourself deliberately and with intention, something begins to shift. You stop leaking energy. The best way I can explain it in a way that makes sense is you stop reacting to every thought. You stop being easily shaken. Stability begins to appear. And in that stability, new things begin to appear. Control is the beginning. Not over others, but over yourself. Peace follows once you have control over your energy. This is where real magic begins. Not in dramatic displays, but in those quiet moments. Moments where you begin to choose differently. It happens when anger rises and you choose not to feed it. It happens when you stay calm under pressure. It happens when your attention becomes steady. These shifts are subtle, but they change everything. When your attention becomes controlled, you begin to move energy in ways you didn't expect, because attention itself is energy. Where you place it shapes your experience. If your attention lives in fear, your body lives in fear. If your attention lives in clarity, your body settles. This is something you can train. Most people never realize this. They think their state controls their attention. But over time, you discover attention controls your state. This realization changes how you move through life. You stop being pulled constantly. You start directing yourself consciously. One of the hardest things a person can do is work on themselves. It's easier to distract yourself, easier to avoid discomfort. But working on yourself requires honesty. It requires awareness. It requires patience with yourself and the process. Most people stop because the progress feels invisible. It feels slow. It feels uncertain. But everything powerful begins without much of a dramatic entrance at first. Everything powerful begins subtly. A thought becomes an action becomes a habit can become a way of life. This is how transformation happens, quietly and steadily. The people described as sages or mystics understood this. They understood attention was one of the major keys, and now I'm trying to teach you something similar. They understood presence and intention should never be overlooked. They weren't escaping reality. They were becoming fully present within it, and presence is rare. Most people, both in our past and in modern times, do not live in the present. But when someone does become present, their energy stabilizes, their thoughts become clearer, and their actions become intentional. Their presence becomes noticeable not because they try, but because they are no longer divided. They are fully themselves. You've met someone like this before. Someone calm, someone steady, someone who feels grounded without effort, someone who feels real. That's not fantasy. That's alignment. That's self-direction. This isn't about becoming some kind of superhuman. It's about becoming undistracted, undivided, intentional. When you reach that point, the world responds differently. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You stop reacting automatically. You start choosing consciously. You begin directing your energy. And that's when people call it magic. Not because it's a far-fetched fantasy, but because it's rare. It never required belief. Only your attention. Only your practice. So notice where your attention goes. Notice what pulls you. Notice what strengthens you. Notice the power you already have within you. Because the moment you see that clearly, everything begins to change quietly and naturally. This begins not with force or control, but with awareness and a steady direction. From there, your choices start to align, your habits start to sharpen, and your life begins to reflect what you've been trying to build beneath the surface. Stay with that, refine your practice daily, and watch what unfolds. See you in the next one, mystics, and remember to stay peaceful.